Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Friday, June 21st. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Akron game in 71 days, the game against Michigan in 162 days. We're talking recruiting on today's show, and that is because this is one of the biggest recruiting weekends of the year for Ohio State. A ton of official visits with some very, very big name players, including Tavien St. Clair, Devin Sanchez, many more. Nate Roberts here. Those are just the committed guys. We're going to be talking about some guys who are not yet committed to Ohio State, but for whom that might change at some point this weekend or in the foreseeable future. We're doing that with our buddy Marc Givler of BuckeyeHuddle.com. Marc, let's start with three guys from the Deep South, three guys from Alabama, one of whom already committed to Ohio State, Naeem Offord, five-star corner, but a couple other defensive players of note, Zion Grady and Malik Autry, also out of Alabama. Those are some potentially very big names, could be potentially a really significant coup for Ohio State in an area of the country where they don't typically pull a lot of talent.
Yeah, I think this is the most interesting thing to watch this weekend because I think they're all linked together, at least in some way. I wouldn't go as far as saying it's an all or nothing proposition, but I feel like it's trending towards being an all or nothing proposition with the Alabama guys. Like they either get them all or they don't. Maybe Naeem Offord could be the one guy who's in the class when the dust settles, but I personally do not think you're going to get Malik Autry if you don't get Zion Grady. I think those two are definitely an all or nothing proposition, and I think Naeem Offord's status in the class and how solid he actually is goes a long way towards getting those two. So, in a way, it's kind of why I alluded to it at the beginning. In a way, it is kind of feeling like it could be an all or nothing proposition. Zion Grady and Malik Autry are really close. They train together, even though they live in different parts of Alabama. They meet halfway in Montgomery to train together. Autry's a huge nose tackle, kind of a throwback, 320-pound nose tackle. Grady's an edge guy, so they would really like to play together in college. But it's not so much that they're a package deal anywhere. I could see them going to separate schools in the Southeast, but I don't think one's coming up to Columbus without the other.
That's really interesting because generally, the typical response to the package deal thing is always, you hear about it a lot and it rarely works out. So it's very interesting to have, and you're usually one of the people sort of poo-pooing that as an idea. So that's very interesting to hear that that's actually maybe going to be something that factors into that decision. Something else that could factor into that decision, Ohio State recruiting a bunch of other very talented defensive linemen. They had Isaiah Gibson, Jarquez Carter on campus earlier in the week. I mean, this is a very, very deep group that Larry Johnson is looking at. How does a visit from someone like Jarquez Carter maybe factor into what could happen with the Alabama guys?
Yeah, I think what they're trying to do right now at defensive tackle is let the whole month play out. So let all the camps play out and let all the official visit weekends play out. So we're just about to that point now. And then decisions have to be made. Obviously, the players have to make decisions, but Ohio State has to make decisions too. They're in on 4 or 5 defensive tackles. They're not going to be able to take all of them. This might only be a 2 defensive tackle class. They are fairly young at the position. They've got some young guys they really like on the roster right now, so I don't think they're going to force the issue too much with maybe more than 2. I think the preferred 2 would be Malik Autry and Jarquez Carter because they can play together. Carter is a classic 3 tech. Autry's a classic 1 tech. And I think those 2 are at the top of the board right now. But you've also got Max Roy out of St. Joe's Prep, who just visited last week. He'll wrap up his official visits this weekend as well. And he's a guy who could maybe fit into this as well. So they've got a lot of irons in the fire at defensive tackle. With defensive end, I think it's a little more simple. I think with guys like Zion Grady and some of the other guys they have out there, some of the speed rusher guys they have out there, they'll kind of just take them. They'll just take them until Ryan Day finally tells Larry Johnson, you can't take any more, guy. Like you just can't do it anymore. So I think they would go all the way up to certainly 4, if not 5 defensive ends in this class. Especially if they can play together in some capacity, whether it's rushman package or just kind of, jack position, strong side, weak side, whatever it might be. So I think, I think defensive end's a little more open right now, and defensive tackles where some tough decisions are going to have to be made.
Another spot where they are maybe going to be taking a pretty deep class is at the cornerback position and really the secondary on the whole. They already have a very, very talented secondary class locked in, a class that's at, I think, 5 now already in terms of commitments. And, that normally would be the time of year where you kind of dust your hands and go, all right, the class is full, see you next year. And that is not the case at all this year. They're looking to bolster that class potentially as soon as this weekend as well, with the visit of 5-star corner who may play safety at the next level. We'll see. Dorian Brew, that he is an Ohio kid who has moved down to Texas. Obviously, always huge to get him back onto campus. Is this someone who you're kind of keeping an eye on commitment-wise, or is this Ohio State needs to create some more separation from the rest of the pack? Where do you think this visit is big for Ohio State?
Well, I do like Ohio State for Dorian Brew still, and I know that's been an area of stress for Ohio State fans. Excuse me. But, I think they're still in pretty good shape there. They've done a really good job recruiting him since he moved to Texas. He's got the Ohio State ties. And, I personally think that they're in the lead, and it's just a matter of, okay, we got to see where he stands and got to see. I think they're going to want an answer here pretty soon because, they're going to take probably about 7 defensive backs, but, we're starting to get to that point where they're going to have to turn away some very talented players, and they don't want to turn those players away if Dorian Brew isn't going to be in, if Naeem Offord isn't going to be in, if Naeem Offord's been visiting a lot of different places, he's been to Alabama several times. I think this weekend you want to kind of get some type of really good feel for those two guys and be like, okay, we don't want to pressure you, but, this is kind of where we're at right now. We're potentially holding off some other talented players because we want you in this class. But if you're not going to be in this class, we kind of need to know that right now. So there could be some interesting conversations there, but I do like where they are with Dorian Brew. And, would he commit this weekend? He's one of the types of kids that could do just about anything in terms of his commitment. He does not like attention. He does not like the spotlight. He could be one of those guys who just releases a commitment on Twitter, and doesn't do the national announcement.
Yeah, so that's going to definitely be one that is worth watching because this is a secondary class with a lot of pieces, but also potentially a lot of moving pieces, as Marc said there. If you're going to keep Naeem Offord and you get Dorian Brew, well, that maybe simplifies the class a little bit. Trey McNutt's still out there in the secondary, obviously a safety. I know he's been making a bunch of visits as well. So, if you get those 3 guys, probably a very easy, simple solution, simple conclusion to the class. Will it be that simple? Well, if you have followed recruiting for more than 2 weeks, the answer is it is almost never that simple. So we'll continue to follow all the secondary drama as the class of 2025 continues to take shape. Another spot where Ohio State has been known to have some drama is on the offensive line recruiting front, and they have maybe the single best offensive lineman in the class of 2025 on his official this weekend, David Sanders Jr. out of North Carolina. That's a name we've talked about a lot because he has got to be one of the top targets on Ohio State's board at a position of significant need. If you can get one of those 5-star offensive tackles, Marc, that is always something you can really hang the rest of the class on. And so this is a big visit. We've seen David Sanders on campus at Ohio State a number of times. Getting him back now for his official, this feels like this is going to be a very, very big weekend for the future of that Ohio State offensive line room one way or the other.
Yeah, I think Ohio State's going to have a good idea of if they're getting David Sanders or not coming out of this visit. He's been up twice in the spring. I think they are the team with the momentum right now, which I honestly can't believe I'm saying right now after where this thing was at, 6-7 months ago. But I think they're the team with momentum right now. And they're obviously the goal is to carry that over. He's not going to get any ultimatums. He's not going to get any, hey, we're holding off other guys we need to wait for you. We need to know. He's not going to get that speech, but he is going to be, informed. He's going to continue to be hammered home how important he is to their class, how much they want to pair him with Carter Lowe as these bookend tackles in this class and build the offensive line of the future around those two guys. So this is big. And David is going to decide before his season starts. So this is going to be over in the next 2 months. And, when he decides, David is the type of kid, the low profile kid that I think will stick where he commits to. Now, can things change if there's like massive coaching changes? Of course, things like that can shake up a recruitment, but I don't see him committing somewhere and then instantly kind of, but I'm going to take, some visits in the fall and do this and that and the other. I think the decision he makes this summer will be the final one.
So that's one spot where Ohio State is definitely going to be watching him very, very closely and may know more, as Mark said, coming out of this weekend. One last spot we need to talk about, running back. Ohio State already has two talented running backs in this class, Bo Jackson and Isaiah West, both committed already. You don't normally have a three-back class, but they are looking at maybe taking a three-back class this year. And if they do, that third back might be Jordan Davison, third back, at least in terms of sequence of commitment, if nothing else. Maybe not in the pecking order in other ways, but this is another big weekend where, is this a weekend where they have to sell Jordan Davison on the idea of it being in a three-back class? Or are they just trying to close the deal? What do you think is on the line this weekend with him?
I think it's all on the line this weekend, but as far as his thoughts on this, that's going to be the $1 million question, because this has turned into a three-back class if he wants to be a part of it. And that maybe wasn't always going to be the case. I know there was a lot of discussions internally throughout the last several months if this would be a 2 or 3-back class. I think Ohio State had a ton of momentum with Jordan Davison once they made the hire of Carlos Lachlan. There was a little kind of that couple-week window there where things got really shaky. But once they hired Lachlan, they regained momentum. They've done a great job there since. A lot of people think he was leaning Ohio State. Now you take the second running back in Isaiah West, and now it's like, okay, let's get him. Let's get around him and let's feel this thing out. But I think they can still get him. As long as that plane touches down, he's serious about doing this. So I think they're serious about getting him, or I think they're serious in terms of being able to get him. And we will see. But I think that's another one we may know pretty soon. Thumbs up, thumbs down, that may not take long. I think because he's sold on so much about Ohio State, because he's been here so many times, I think he's either going to be sold this weekend on his role in this class or not. And so I think this will go, quickly in one direction or the other. I don't think this is something that we'll have to wait, 3 months to realize that he didn't actually want to be in a three-back class. I think we'll find out pretty quickly.
And we may find out pretty quickly about a few other guys this weekend as well. There are a couple of in-state guys who just got offered scholarships in the last week or so who are both making their official visits this weekend. We are going to be following that news potentially all weekend long at BuckeyeHuddle.com. There's another in-state prospect who has set a decision date for July 3rd. Well, we're going to be following that one as well. We are headed out of Ohio State summer camp season and now into commitment season as we turn the page towards the end of June and into early July. That's typically when you see a sort of a rush of commitments for a lot of schools, including Ohio State. And that is going to be a very busy time at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We hope to see you there. We're going to have a lot to talk about there. And as the commitment season gives way to talking season, we'll be at Big Ten Media Days in Indianapolis in just about a month. Can't believe that is almost here. That is sort of the unofficial start of the season. And then fall camp starts August 1st, and bing, bang, boom, there it is. The Akron game will be kicking off before you know it. There's going to be a lot to talk about all summer long and into the fall at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That's where Tony, Kevin, and I cover the team. Mark covers recruiting. We got our whole team of X's and O's gurus making you a smarter football fan. Plus a really fun and active community on the Huddle Board presented by Jeff Ruby's Steakhouse, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We hope to see you there. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you on Monday.